Ladies and gentlemen, please notice that exits are conveniently located at the front and rear of this auditorium. When leaving the theater, we suggest that the exit at the front of the auditorium will allow you easier access to the parking areas. Thank you.
Oh my god, that's gross. Corey Feldman does not know how to eat a freaking pizza.
Completely changed the face of everything.
It's very unique. I will give it that.
Oh, thanks, man. I don't want to embarrass myself.
Should I embarrass myself?
No, please no. Oh, shut up. Shut up.
I am embarrassed.
Hello, I'm Mike Field.
And I'm Mike Butler.
And you're listening to the Forgotten Cinema Podcast. Each episode, we highlight a film that, for a variety of reasons, was forgotten by audiences, whether it be because of a more popular film came out at the same time, or the movie simply didn't catch on with an audience in its initial run. We'll discuss what we love about the movie, or perhaps what we don't love about it, and decide whether the movie is worth a revisit. If you enjoyed our podcast, please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. So before we talk about this week's movie, let's talk about ourselves. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Why don't you go first?
All right. I'm Mike Butler. I'm an actor and writer based on the East Coast. I've written a couple of scripts. I've acted in web series, short films, plays in and around New York City. And for my day job, I am a movie theater manager.
As am I. Mike and I both work at the same unnamed movie theater where we enjoy various excursions with employees and patrons, I guess. I was going to say guests, but patrons. I'm also a writer-director. I haven't actually directed something in quite some time, so it's probably more accurate to say I'm a writer. I have 2 books out right now. They're part of the Adam Parker Mystery Series. You can find them on Amazon through ebook or paperback. Mike and I were just recently discussing a play that I had just written that we're hoping to at least see to come to fruition at one point, called May 19th, 1999. I'm just going to leave it at that. You can probably figure out what it's about. And yeah, that's it. And I do podcasts with Mike.
I do podcasts as well.
Mike does a lot of podcasts, but we'll get to that later in the plug hour. So before we talk about our movie, actually, no. I mean, I was going to give the spoiler disclaimer, but why don't you introduce our movie?
All right, so today we are talking about the 1983 film Star Chamber, starring Michael Douglas. The film is I guess you could call it a thriller. Kind of a
crime, drama, thriller kind of thing? Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you tell them what's it about? All
right, so in Star Chamber, Michael Douglas plays a judge, Stephen Hardin, who is a little tired of the system. The system seems he has to make all these decisions because he is a judge. He has to be impartial, and doing that causes a couple of criminals to get away with murder. And
well, because of legal loopholes.
Because of legal loopholes and things like that. He has to throw away evidence that would otherwise put these people away because it's inadmissible. So with him starting to become more down on the law, he gets a invitation from his friend Benjamin Caulfield, played by Hal Holbrook, to join the Star Chamber, which is a collection of judges who look back on cases where the criminals, or supposed criminals, have gotten away with a myriad of different crimes, usually murder.
They've used the legal loopholes and have gotten away with it, yeah.
So they decide themselves, this group of 9, who's guilty, who's not, and they get an assassin to go and take these criminals out.
It's very vigilante justice type, which was very popular in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah. So Judge Hardin has a case where 2 criminals have supposedly thinking they have gotten away with murder of a child, and then they murder another child. He puts them up for assassination for the Star Chamber. The Star Chamber agrees, and then Michael Douglas, his character, his Judge Hardin, finds out they didn't actually commit the murder and has to go try to stop this assassin after he's told once it's in motion, the assassination can't be stopped.
Right. It's It's talking about vigilante justice, whether that is justified, whether you should ignore the law of the land and take justice in your own hands. Whether the benefits, if there are any, and the benefits that are not existent for that.
The whole film seems to try to teach us that the law isn't perfect, but it's there for a reason, and that these loopholes and the impartialness of the justice system and judges is there for a reason. and it's to stop things like this from happening.
Right. So before we go into all the facts and our viewing notes and whatnot, why don't we just give the disclaimer, which I was trying to do before, but I just ignored the format. So if you have not seen The Star Chamber, stop right now. Go find it on, I got it on Amazon Prime.
I got it on Xbox.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I know, like, there was some issue with trying to watch this movie this time around because my unnamed cable provider, I had access to Cinemax, but then it was gone like the next day, so I basically had to buy it off Amazon Prime. So it's out there. I know if you wanted to rent the DVD, it's like $50 because it's just not in print. So obviously it's an older movie, which, is probably perfect for this podcast, why it was forgotten. So stop now, go watch it, and then come back and then listen to the rest of this. We'll wait. We always wait.
Are you back?
Hey, how you doing? Glad
All
you
right.
watched it. It's only an hour and 49 minutes. All right, so I guess I'm the one that does the production facts here, which, you need to start doing. But anyways.
Maybe in the next 10.
Okay. So this movie was released, as Mike said, in 1983. It was actually released on August 5th, 1983, the same day as Risky Business. So this was going to be this was 20th Century Fox's big summer movie that year. And I'm about to tell you why. This is probably the biggest reason why this movie was forgotten, because this movie came out either a couple days or a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the following movies that I'm about to list off. And it probably got sucked up in this wake. So the week before it came out, National Lampoon's Vacation, that's the first one. Jaws 3D. Now, whether you like Jaws 3D or not, Jaws 3D is the third movie in the Jaws trilogy, or the Jaws series, so it's going to be big. Some movie called Return of the Jedi, Krull, Krull, Trading Places, War Games, Octopussy, and Flashdance. So it was a big summer, exactly. So a lot of these movies you've probably seen like 9 or 10 times already. So they're popular. So there's a reason why, a movie like The Star Chamber, and as we get into it, this movie is not a summer movie.
No,
it should not have been. It should not have come out in the summer. And actually, 20th Century Fox, I have this in my notes, but we'll talk about it now. This movie came out, it did not do well. They pulled it, and then they went wide with Mr. Mom, because Mr. Mom came out in July of that year, limited. Back in the 80s and probably some of the 90s, maybe the 70s, movies came out limited just to kind of test the waters. And then when they had word of mouth, they went wide. Now movies they open wide all the time. Just boom, they're wide.
Right, the only ones that open limited now are pretty much the Oscar bait movies.
Pretty much, or like an art house film, and like a movie like They Shall Not Grow Old, that opened really limited, and people wanted to see it, so they went a little bit more wide. Like stuff like that. Yeah. So, Mr. Mom had come out limited, and then 20th Century Fox like, we're going to make this the big hit of the summer, and obviously it was. It's a funny movie. So then, Star Chamber was pulled back and forgotten.
Oh.
So it has an $8 million budget. It made $5.5 million total, $2 million opening weekend, which it's a flop. And if you compare, what I actually did was I should have done this for the other movies we went through, but I actually put this through to see like what is 5.5 million in today's time.
Yeah.
So it's like 15 million. That's what it made total, which is a complete flop.
Yep.
Rated R, 1 hour and 49 minutes. We talked about it's a crime, drama, mystery. Directed by Peter Hyams, who has done Time Cop, which is, I like that movie. It's not great. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's awesome, because every time I think about Time Cop, I always think about the effect of Ron Silver being thrown into himself, and it's just so bad. I can't, when he's all like morphing into himself. And
Time Clock's a great schlocky action movie. It's great.
I mean, it's got automated cars, which were almost there. So, I mean, it didn't know what it was talking about. Capricorn 1, which you probably have not seen.
I've heard of it, but I have not seen it.
That's a pretty good movie. And the movie that our friend Greg wants us to do constantly, 2010.
I do like 2010.
Okay, listen, it's not on the list, so right now we're not doing it. This was also written by Peter Hyams and Roderick Taylor. This is his debut. Taylor did, he's done a lot of movies like this. Do you remember The Brave one?
Yes.
With Jodie Foster?
Yeah.
He did that. He wrote that one. But this is his first movie that he wrote. So you talked about Michael Douglas, Hal Holbrook, Yaphet Kotto, Sharon Gless, and James Seeking are probably the main cast members. Kotto actually is a big part of the story, which I wish he was bigger. That's pretty much still the facts, production facts. I think I already went through why it was forgotten. I mean that's a pretty big. It flopped. and it came out the wrong time. It was a bad release date. That's a movie this movie would probably be what? I don't want to say it's Oscar bait, but it's probably like a October, November release.
I'm
maybe.
thinking October.
It's like more of a fall movie. Like it's an adult film. It's not like you're not gonna have the teenagers go to see this. It's gonna be like a more older audience. I'm trying to think about it if it was released now.
I'm thinking October. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm thinking HBO limited series as well. Like 5 or 6.
That works.
I've got some notes.
Ooh, okay. Well, let me ask you off the top because I think I always ask you this because of a movie that you have never seen that I have seen.
Yes.
Did you like this movie?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Oh, you liked it. All right. So I guess before we get into it, I want to talk about the whole reference to the title. So the Star Chamber is the name because they never actually refer to when the judges are together. And they never actually refer to themselves as a Star Chamber.
I noticed. I was a little disappointed in that. I was waiting for them to drop the title in.
Because the title of the movie comes from... So in 1847, King Henry VII created this kind of court. This court, it was basically... These judges would find... there was 9 judges, and they would find justice that the courts of that time could not do. And they met in this room that had stars on the ceiling. And so it was called the Star Chamber.
Okay.
So this is where the title comes from. That the same idea they've already did this back in 1800s, and I think they revisited it again. And also this is also nicknamed the Court of Last Resort. So which it's probably a better title, but I do like Star Chamber.
Yeah.
But the only problem with the Star Chamber is probably another thing that has to do with why this was forgotten was you hear the Star Chamber, you're thinking Star Wars. You're thinking science fiction.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of like when we did Sorcerer, the same thing. Like when the movie Sorcerer starring Roy Scheider, directed by William Friedkin, which is another episode. I don't know if you've heard it or it's going to hear it, but I think we already done it.
Yeah.
So that movie, people heard that movie and they're like, oh, this must be some kind of science fiction movie or a mystical.
Yeah.
Same thing here with the Star Chamber. I think people assumed one thing and it was another.
Yeah.
So you liked it. Tell me what you liked about. I guess one thing that you liked about it. And we can go from there.
I enjoyed the dialogue. I enjoyed the dialogue. Served its purpose to throw out ideas, to make you think about what's just and what's not. Like it made you think the whole movie, and I was like, oh, I kind of like that. I like movies like that where the dialogue. Michael Douglas poses questions that you, the audience, should be asking. About justice, about law, about what's right and what's wrong, and that I really enjoyed that, and I thought was kind of it was not riveting, but it kept me watching and it kept me going. Oh wow! When the movie was almost over, I was like, oh wow, this movie kind of really flows. It works well.
Are you talking about the dialogue when he is invited into the court? The Star Chamber Court, the Court of Last Resort, when he has that problem with the fact that he discovers that the people that he assumed killed the kid didn't.
That
or you told me the beginning.
The scene in the court where he's talking to where Hardin's talking to Caulfield after he's made the decision that he's going to do something about the assassination after the rest of the chamber won't.
Yep.
The conversation with his wife, the conversation with Dr. Lewin about his son when he visits him in the hospital. Or the prison, rather, and when he visits him.
Okay, yep.
In between, when he's in recess, when he tries to give him the picture of his son.
Right.
Those kind of that kind of dialogue, those kind of questions that come up, and his reasoning for things. I like all that.
Right. I actually like when he's yelling at the prosecutor when they're in chambers, and he's yelling at him. He's yelling at her for damn you for putting me into this position because you couldn't do your job.
Right. That's good too.
Yeah, I thought that was good. I also like the opening when. The beginning because it's 2 trials. Well, the first trial where they set up where these first guys go free is because when they're chasing them and the scoop is not part of the trash. Yeah. It's like I mean I'm sure back then that's probably accurate. I wonder if that's still accurate now. If because now I'm pretty sure once you put your trash to the curb.
It's fair game.
It's fair game. So basically what happens at the beginning of the movie, there's a chase. There's this guy that's been killing elderly women and stealing their checks, stealing their Social Security checks. And these 2 cops are just kind of staking out something else. And they see this guy. It's early in the morning. They see this guy walking. And they're like, this guy doesn't look like what's going on here. So they start chasing him. And he goes into his house and he dumps the gun into the trash can. And they stand at the trash can and they're like, what do we do here? We can't. And the guy's like, no, let's wait till the garbage truck comes. The garbage truck was like down the street and picking it up. So there was basically, once it was in the garbage truck, it was city property. Yeah. But the defense lawyer argues that it's still in the scoop, and once the scoop goes into the trash for everybody, then it's part of it's city property. But once it's in the scoop, it's still his client had a reasonable right to his privacy.
Right.
But I think now it's once it's to the curb. But regardless, that's, I want to tell you what, one of the things I liked that, and this is going to sound weird, but I liked that felt like I was watching a film. Like, I loved the Foley work. Like, I loved, like, when they're running and it's clear that there's somebody in a studio running on cement, and like it's clear that like when they're chasing, when they're going up and like I know that, like, and at the end when he's in the warehouse and he's walking and you hear the crackle of you hear the crackle of his feet on like the cement, and I just love that. I mean, because it's just like, yeah, all right. Like, I just picture the guy in studio doing it all, or the woman doing it all, and I'm just like, rock on. I'm into that. I like the way it looked. I liked the way it was. I liked the way it was blocked in terms of like where characters are. Like, I like the actual image. Now the image, I'm gonna get into a little filmmaking thing here.
Ooh.
So this was shot widescreen movies now are shot 2.35 or 2.39, usually 2.35, and that's with the black bars. For people that don't understand that, when you're watching a movie, the black bars that are on top and the bottom of the screen. So it's a wider screen. This was shot 220, and that's primarily, it was shot an aspect of 221 with 220 basically, which is called, back then it's called Todd AO, which is what they shoot for 70 millimeter film prints. But for some reason this was shot on 35 millimeter, which I'm not really that well versed in this. Mm-hmm. But going through it, so this was shot wider, and you can tell because when you're watching it, you're not watching it at 220, you're watching it at 235. And if you look on the edges of the image, especially when they're when there's wide shots, especially when they're in you could definitely see it when they're the nine judge. They have the nine guys at the table, and they got the long shot of all them. Yeah. The image bows on the left and right. It starts to curve. As soon as I saw that, I was like, this is really wide. So immediately I was like, I need to know what the actual aspect ratio of this, because it's not 2.35, which again, I like. I actually would want to see this movie in its original format. I don't care how thick the black bars are. That doesn't bother me. I've always hated when a movie is widescreen and they make it flat. They make it 1.85 instead of 2.35. And the one example of that I always talk about is in Die Hard, when they're at the doors. The SWAT team is trying to cut through the doors, mm-hmm. and you're waiting, and you don't see the gun. You see the gun coming across, like there's like someone hands the gun off to somebody else, and you don't see that. You don't see that in the 1.85 print. You don't see that when they flatten the image, and it's like that's a cool moment. I hate when movies are not in their original format. Not that I didn't hate the Star Chamber because I was watching it 2.35, but I would like to see this in its original format just to kind of see it as it was meant to be seen. Yeah. So that coupled with, I liked the lighting. I enjoyed how like it's like, especially like, it's tough to make LA. I don't want to say pleasant looking because it's not. It's tough to give it a look. Yeah. But I think in this movie, especially in the beginning when they're in the morning and they get the morning sun, and especially when they're in the court, it's very warm. That Southern LA, Southern California warm sun, like that kind of thing. Like I definitely felt that. And then at the end when they're in the warehouse and all the shadows and all the cool, crisp white, light that's coming through, like all that stuff is great too. There's just so much about this movie that I like from a filmmaking perspective that I dug. Not just the story. I enjoy the story, but just the kind of and just the kind of classic style of shooting that it also is. Because I'm a big guy of a lot of the older stuff I've done was been like I'll do like dolly work, like the slow cut, the dolly going to the left to right, following, like all that stuff. They do all that stuff here, which I was into. So for me, it was a big, I guess, filmmaking moment to watch this movie. And I had seen this movie already, so I was already into that kind of stuff beginning.
Right.
So yeah, but like I was very surprised about like when I watched it the other day how well it looked.
I thought the same thing. I was like, this looks more like a movie from the way it's lit and shot. It looks like a movie from maybe the late 80s. Then like
Right.
83. This looks like more like 87, 88.
Well,
Kinda
it's
like
definitely
that.
like it's because like you had in the 70s, you had it was very once I guess the late 60s and into the 70s, you started having zooms was like the big thing.
Yeah.
like zooms in, zoom out, and like if for people now, if you see like a lot of the Star Trek movies do that, which is fine, that works. Like they'll have the image, you see the wide shot of them fighting, and they zoom into the the Enterprise or something like that.
Right.
But this doesn't have that, which I kind of like. I don't mind the zoom work, but I think for this movie, if this movie had that, I think this movie it would date this. Like I would be like, oh, okay, that's an old movie. You know, it feels
Yeah.
like but the way the movie is presented now, where it's where I'm talking, it's more of a classic style. It feels almost timeless. It feels like
Yes.
It feels like I'm watching a movie that somebody could have made today, but set it back in the 80s.
And the real world locations help too.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
That warehouse looks like they probably shot at a warehouse.
Right.
The courthouse looks like a courthouse. The outside street scenes aren't lit like unnaturally. They're lit with like especially that morning scene, like you were talking about the morning light. It looks like it's early morning anywhere. Like make it today, you just have a guy walking with a cell phone, but it's a clean, crisp picture with no unnatural lighting, trying to make like a weird style to it. Kind of like French Connection almost. The morning scene kind of seemed that kind of gray.
Oh, when they're chasing this, when he's
When they're
Santa,
chasing at
when
the
he's
beginning.
when he's dressed as Santa Claus.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned the lighting because so Peter Hyams is also a cinematographer, director of photography. It depends on, I guess it's however you want to be called.
Okay.
And so I know that there was some issue with this movie where he was doing some of that, and I guess he got sued by one of the unions because they were saying he was doing a lot of the work of his cinematographer at the time. But for other movies, he was primarily director of photography for a lot of the stuff that he's done. But for this movie, I guess they made a bunch of different lighting packages, lighting innovations, they call them.
Okay.
So they have this one thing where I couldn't find anything but what it was called and kind of what it did. So it was called, they nicknamed it the Big Fox Light, which is because it's 20th Century Fox, and it's made of aluminum. So it's able to produce 18 million candle power units.
Okay.
And it's supposed to, you use it just basically light everything. It's 11 by 11 feet, and it's supposed to eliminate any shadows during daytime shooting. So basically they made this thing where they just lit the whole scene, lit the
Right.
whole image. And, that's probably what you're talking
That's
about.
exactly what
Right.
I'm talking about. How there's no shadow work that tries to like make it a feel. It's
Right.
It's more real. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably, I think, obviously the way we both respond to it was successful.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed. So you like the dialogue, you like the look.
I like the dialogue. I like the look. Although the action happens, I think, a little too late. I like the action. I like that when he goes to stop the assassin. It's not because the first time I watched Star Chamber, not the first time. This is my first time. The first time when we decided we were going to watch it, I watched the original trailer on YouTube, and the old school trailer presents it as an action thriller,
Yeah.
which I didn't mind that it wasn't. But I was like watching the movie. I was like, well, if this devolves at the end into this action thriller, it's
Yeah.
not going to really work. If Michael Douglas is all of a sudden fighting the assassin hand to hand, I was like, this is gonna.
He's a judge.
Ruin. And he is. He even says like when he's got the ether in his hand, he's like, I am scared shitless right now. And like he admits like he's not gonna fight these two criminals.
Right. And they're beating the crap out of him, too.
Yeah, it's like I really like that end scene. I really like the tenseness. And one thing, it's kind of stupid, but I like the fact that even at the beginning of the movie and at the end, anytime they're running, I mean, you like the Foley work.
Oh, it's great.
They're also running.
Yeah.
Which, even today, there's so many scenes where somebody's supposed to run in a movie. And I think we talked about this with another movie that you shot with an actor who couldn't really...
Oh, yeah. So, side note. So we were going to do this movie called... Oh, man. Oh, no, we were doing a web series. It was going to be Purebred, actually. And it was supposed to be like... This guy was supposed to be like a spy. He was supposed to be like this, like... not an assassin, but just basically a guy who's like supposed to be tactical. And so we're like, okay, I need you to run across. You're gonna run from this car to that car or whatever. And he runs, and he wasn't running. He was like I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't running, and it was like someone who never knew how to run, and someone who maybe he just wasn't not an athlete or just I don't know. And like I was like, okay, can you try it again? Yeah, sure, no problem. Does it again, and I'm just like, can you do it like where you're pumping your arms or like it got to the point where I was just like, all right, forget it, then like cut it, and then that never you'll never see that movie. That footage is gone. I think I deleted it. So like that we never did it again. We never did the web series, and for a variety of reasons, not because that guy couldn't run, but he just it's exactly it's just kind of like when you watch a sports movie and they clearly can't play the sport that they're in, and they try to make them be like fantastic.
Yeah,
I hate that. I hate when you watch somebody go up and they're like this world class golfer and they can't swing the club right. It's terrible. So yeah.
So yeah, they actually run in this film, and I'm like, oh man, they're actually running. The cameraman's keeping up with them, or it's just a shot where the cameraman doesn't need to, and I really like that. A lot of movies now, which I don't like, an overuse of like the Bourne series with that kind of just quick cuts to make you seem like they're fighting, even though it's one move at a time. I think it takes away from the action of showing a fight completely. But the one thing that works for it is running. You can fake running a little better when you do that.
Yeah. It makes you appreciate what Tom Cruise does.
But yeah, exactly. Other than Tom Cruise, I don't know if that's what the guy in your web series was doing, but they're floating. They're kind of like gliding and running slowly, and they're just like...
He was doing nothing that was any kind of relationship, any kind of running. It was not running. It was like skipping, almost.
Right. It's almost like... It really takes you out of it. When they're actually chasing each other, it gives this intensity to the moment. When he's running in the morning and he runs down that front lawn that's sloped.
The cops? The bad guy?
The bad guy, he falls, and then the cops do it, and he just slides down. They're actually running at full. They're actually pushing themselves to do that. And it's...
Right, well, that's probably a stunt guy.
Probably.
Which is fine, but they're probably like, listen, you got to come down the hill and crash right into this trash. Okay. Go do it. Yeah, all right.
And then run down the sidewalk. All right, full speed. Don't hold back.
And that's what stunt guys want to do. They want to do that stuff. Like that stuff's fun. Like, that's not asking them to jump off a cliff and,
almost hurt themselves and
hit 80 branches on the way down. Yeah, exactly.
Like Larry Hankin when he's running and on the sidewalk as Detective Kenneth Wiggin, even he's running in the shots where he's running.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
It's a little thing. It's a small thing, but it's realistic, and you're watching it and you believe that it's happening.
Right.
And I think that sometimes some modern films, some big time budget studio films, there's a level of it's not real, and it pulls you out. I don't care how fantastical it is. I mean, you want to see that, you want to see your actors, you want to see your action heroes actually doing something, not just kind of, I don't want to say half-assing it, but just not doing what you think they should be doing.
Running. All I want you to do is actually run in a run scene. Don't jog.
A good chase. I can tell you what. You could do a good chase scene. You could do like a short film for like a 5-minute, and it's just a chase, and you can make it riveting and good.
I think it's funny because you did do a short running film.
What, the Mimes?
Yeah. Not just that, The Hero as well.
Yeah. So I did this short, The Hero. But you can do that. You can do an entire. If you do it well, and everyone's running around and doing it, it still works.
Yeah.
There's definitely room for it. I think people should just go do a running scene. Will you, people? One of the questions I always had about this movie is how Holbrook always old? Because every time I see him in something, I need to go back and watch something of him when he was younger.
He's always old, and Larry Hankin is always old.
Yeah.
I was looking at him. I was like, this is 1980. He looks exactly the same in the movies he's in like now.
We haven't talked about because this will probably go into some of the things I wished was a little better, or kind of I don't wish I was a little better, but we haven't talked about Yaphet Kotto, who is really good in this,
yes.
I kind of wanted him to be more involved with the stuff with Hardin. Like when Hardin goes to the bar and sits with him, and that's like the last half hour of the movie. Like that's it, and then he shows up at the end and saves his ass.
Right.
That's like I thought that. I mean, maybe I'm asking for a movie to be a little longer than at that point, but I thought that there would have been more stuff between Lowe's and Hardin. Lowe's is Kotto's character, in terms of helping him bring down the Star Chamber, bring down stop these two from getting murdered. I don't know. Because they have such a there's a great line in that scene where Kotto tells him, he's basically saying like, why are you coming to me? Because he's trying to ask him where the two guys are that he has already set for death.
Right.
And he wants to know where they are. He tells them they're at this warehouse, and he's like, and he keeps asking them, why do you want to know? He's like, I just want to know. And like, he doesn't tell him, and he's just like, but he knows something is up. And he tells him, he tells him that, he's a plotter. And he says the advantage of a plotter is, we're not fast, we're persistent. And that's why, because he's discussing how they solved the child murders. Because basically these two guys that Hardin thought did it, that they got away with them, because they basically they basically pull these guys over in a van. There's a bloody. They find this child killed. He's missing a shoe. They pull these two guys over in a van. They find the bloody shoe in the back, but the search was illegal for some reason. I can't remember the reason right now, because I guess they
smelled weed, but it wasn't really
right. There was conflicting whether they smelled it, and you couldn't
really have a warrant.
Right.
So he looked in. It wasn't visible from the outside of the van. He had to look in it to see the shoe.
So they see the shoe. These guys get brought in trial. They get away with it, supposedly. Then right after Hardin goes to the Star Chamber, to the court, and says like presents his case, and they all will go around guilty, guilty, guilty. They set it in motion. These two are going to die by the hands of this assassin that they don't ever know. They never talk about how they contact him, but they never know who he is. He doesn't know who they are. So after they sentence these two for death, then you discover that they have the scene where the guy who's robbing the car, stealing the cars, they catch him flowers.
Yep.
And he tells about how he had to do a job for these three guys that they wanted him to steal a van so that the owners didn't even know it was stolen, and bring it back, and they would never know they took it, and they just needed it for a couple hours. And you find out that these three guys are into, which I find funny, because Flower goes, I didn't know what these guys were going to do. I didn't know they were going to kill a kid. But then he's like, they're into child porn and stuff like that. But you know what they're into. So Flowers is probably going away too. So they basically find out that Kodo finds these guys. They find the right guys, and that's what Hardin's, when he comes to this conversation, forward to this conversation, Hardin's like, now you know that these are the guys, and that's when he gives the line, I'm a plotter, we're not fast, we're persistent, we keep on it. He's basically like, you're not going to throw this one out, are you, too? Like, he tells him. But Kodo obviously knows something's up, so he follows him, and he saves his ass at the end. I just wanted more of them together. I wanted them, because at the end, when they're sitting in the car, because at the end of the movie, you hear the court has convened again, and someone's presenting a case, conceivably without Hardin there. Mm-hmm. So now they're 8, not 9. And you come out of the house, you come out of the window, you see them in the window, you pull back, you go over, and they're in the car listening to the tape conversation of them talking. So basically kind of getting them on tape.
Yeah.
I forgot the ending. I was hoping that the ending was going to be they're going to pull back and you just see cop cars coming down.
That's what I was expecting, yeah,
trying to arrest them, because it's kind of like, yeah, I get it, you're going to catch them, but it's kind of that's not climactic enough at the end for that. I don't know.
I agree.
But so I wanted more of them together. I wanted more of them together, and I wanted the other thing that was the beginning. The whole reason that Hardin has the option to come into this court is because that guy kills himself. That judge kills himself shoots himself in the bathroom.
Yep.
They never explain why. They never explain why he did it. They never talk about, what was bothering him. Clearly, obviously, we're just going to assume that he didn't like the fact that he was, in this
people.
Right. He's the only one. These other 8 guys are all cool with it, and women too. They're all cool with what they're doing. Nobody has any reservations.
Yeah.
When Hardin talks about when he starts talking about how they need to stop this, listen, we got to stop this. I made a mistake. There's this random guy that is not nobody has a huge monologue about who gives you the right. It's like, who's this guy? So it's a great idea. Mm-hmm. I would want more of the intricacies of the Star Chamber, of the Court of Last Resort, how they contact this guy, who thought it. Is it Hal Holbrook, the guy who runs it? Because he's his friend. He keeps calling him buddy, but did he tell the assassin to kill him too? Stuff like that. I thought there was more there. There could be more there. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just me being I wanted more. It's not taking away from the movie. The movie, I still enjoy the movie, but I think I just wanted more.
I get that. That's one of my really my only complaint about the movie was that I think it just ends. I don't necessarily need more about the Star Chamber. I don't need to know where the individual judges come from, but that would have helped. But I have the same things about the end. I wanted to know, once he reaches, the decision, I'm going to stop these guys, he gets to the warehouse. I paused it. I wanted to see how much time was left in the movie. It was 15 minutes left, and you got to figure, all right, at least, 4 or 5 is the credits. The 10 minutes of the movie left already.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, so everything's going to happen at the end. We're going to wrap this up in 10 minutes. The anticlimactic part where he's just listening on the tape. If the police arrested him, at least that would put an end cap on it. The cop is following Hardin, and then all of a sudden gets called away to a different case.
Yeah.
And so we don't see, like, we could have followed him.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems to be like, all right, we have to wrap this up. The movie's only 110 minutes. You go a little longer.
110.
110?
No, it's no, you're right. I'm sorry. It's 110 minutes.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm sorry.
The movie's only 110 minutes, so you can add another, I think another 10 to 15 minutes of the movie would help. And it's like a thriller, so it's excusable to be a little long.
It's interesting you say political because I think it's a disservice to when I have to put it on Amazon and the poster frame is him with a gun
And the American flag.
behind him. And when does he ever hold a gun in the movie? Never. And what's with the flag? What does that mean? I mean, like, that's not good. Like, that's not. You want people to discover this movie? I get it. I get you're trying to sell people on something, but as soon as they watch this movie, they're not going to like it because you promised them something that it's not. Like, I see that when he's got the gun and he's got the flag behind him, like it's some kind of political assassination thriller that Michael Douglas is a Secret Service agent and he's going to go kill somebody.
It's funny you should say that because on Xbox, the other recommended title was, oh man, what's that Clint Eastwood one?
Oh, In the Line of Fire?
Yes, and it's the same poster. It's the same cover for the movie, and I'm like, it's false advertising.
That does not help a movie try to find another audience. And I'll tell you what about that. This movie is ripe for a sequel, remake.
Absolutely.
And I read, because I was like, this movie should be remade. Because the story is relatable to today. It's relatable to any modern time.
Right.
And in every modern time, everyone thinks crime is terrible.
Hell, the Star Chamber's based on something from the 1800s, so.
Right. The world's going to hell, all that stuff. Every time, every generation feels that way.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. It's just every generation feels that way. So this movie is ripe for a remake. And I read that Frank Spotnitz, who was a writer and executive producer on The X-Files, was going to do this, was developing this like 7 years ago with FX, but never happened. But I mean, I don't want. But here's again, FX. So you were going to do a series. I don't want a series. Give me a movie. Give me. You know what you said. What you were saying before?
Like a 5-episode limited series, a limited series, a mini series in the truest sense, like how they used to be. Something like HBO does every once in a while. You get 4 or 5 episodes. It's an extended movie essentially.
TNT has done that a couple times. They've had limited with I Am the Night, and AMC did the Terror. Right? Yes.
Terror was more of an actual series. That was like 12 episodes, though, right?
Terror was 6. I watched it. I don't think it was 12.
But yeah, something shorter like that. That way you can really get into the aspect of it. You can maybe even focus on a couple of the judges and how they got there. Which, speaking of the judges, did you notice one of them?
Nope.
Was
I'll tell you right now, I did not notice.
Michael Ensign, the guy who runs the hotel in Ghostbusters.
Oh,
and
you know what? Now I do. Yes.
Not only that, he is wearing pretty much the exact same suit.
That's his
the
look.
Exact same red bow tie and everything. I'm like, holy shit, that's the guy from Ghostbusters.
When was Ghostbusters? 84, right?
I think 84.
So what? So this was probably shot in 82. Maybe that was his look. Maybe that was the look on his headshot.
Hey guys, I got to go across the street. I got to shoot something else real quick.
I saw you in a movie a couple years ago, and you had this look on you, Star Chamber. Yeah, I want that same look for this.
Sure, he pulls his shirt off. He's already got the bow tie going. Yeah, but I have the same, that third act, which a lot of movies, like we've discussed, I think, more than a few times already in this podcast, that movies have third act issues.
All the time.
And this one, big time. Your third act is 2% of the movie. If your third act happens in the last 5 minutes, and you don't really get a chance to wrap everything up.
Right.
And the policeman comes, like the policeman assassin, is he a cop in real life? Is he not? You don't really know that. I was curious about that.
Yeah, yeah.
He just comes in, shoots the guys, goes to turn around, shoot Michael Douglas, cowers, the assassin gets shot. All right, now let's go over to your judges. First of all, what's going to happen to Judge Harden? Your main character. What
Oh,
happens? to
he
him?
should be in jail.
Is he going to jail? Is he copping a plea deal?
Well, technically, these two were killed, and they were killed because he put it in order.
Yeah,
so
it's like,
he should be he's got to be disbarred. He's not going to be a judge anymore.
Yeah.
No, I agreed. Like that's the thing. Like there's a lot of culpability towards him for him, and like this was his first. Like he's brought in. He votes on a couple. He votes on like one of the things.
Which I do like that the first one he's further away and he's not even looking.
Yeah.
The second one he's midway in the chamber and listening, and the last one is he's the head of the chamber.
Right.
I like that progression.
Right. But he's definitely got culpability, and he's definitely in trouble.
Yeah.
Now, he shouldn't It's not like it's going to be like, hey, thanks, man, thanks for telling us. But those guys died. Those guys died because he put an order.
Yeah.
He presented a case. They voted on it. He's going to be at least charged with manslaughter.
And as far as we know, it's at least 4 murders that he was part of.
Right, and he agreed to kill those other people. Absolutely. Yeah. And you see one of them, right?
You see 2 of them. Well, I don't know if it's 2 of 2 of Harden's cases.
Right.
You see the guy
with he's shooting. It's clearly he's shooting some kind of red dye on him,
right?
Because he's got no shirt on, which is fine.
And
I'm
then
fine
you
with
get
that.
the guy getting who buys the liquor bottle and goes to his hotel room.
Right. Yeah,
But I don't know if those are both the Harden cases.
I don't. If he voted on him.
Right. One of them he definitely did. I don't remember if the other one was like before he comes into the chamber or not.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is in terms of like one of the things that kind of like stuck out for us was that the story is missing elements. Like I think like this kind of movie is focusing on the message rather than the characters.
Right, which I like the message and I like that they explore the message, but your third act should be to wrap up the characters.
Well, you're there. You're involved in the story because you're involved with the characters in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And when you ignore them and just try to focus on what your message of your film is, that's fine if you want to do that, but you still have to give service to your characters. And whatever, the best don't do that. Then nobody's perfect, and I'm not criticizing the filmmakers or the writers of this movie because it's extremely hard to do all this. But I just think that the characters could have used a little bit more. And me wanting to have more with the characters, me wanting Lowe's and Harden to be working together more, me wanting all that is because I'm into that. I'm into the characters that they've created.
Right.
The only character that I don't like is Sharon Gless is the wife because she's just completely not used. And it's the early 80s. It's old time filmmaking. She's the wife, and it's just like, right. What are you there for? I mean, she does. This is like her first big film, but she's just there to be so that Harden, Michael Douglas's character, can just complain, and she's there to listen and be his so you want a drink? Oh, honey, let's have some witty banter. It's like, can you give her more to do, please?
Yeah.
I mean, don't have her there at all. Don't cast a big name actress if you're not going to give her anything to do.
I thought the same with the kids that are just playing the video games.
One of them is his kids, though. One of them is one of them is Douglas's kids, or both of them. I don't know which one.
He doesn't really. I mean, he does. At one point, he finally shouts out, that kid's the same age as my son.
True.
That could have been used to a more dramatic effect. I think the fact that he has children and this is affecting children, or I'm on the Star Chamber now. What about my children? And when I, the chamber doesn't bring that up, then go, well, you're going to be, we're all going to go to jail. You're going to go to jail. No children. They don't bring up that at all. And it's like, why have children? The same reason as why have a wife. At least she has some dialogue. No,
I know. I just, I want to. If somebody's on screen, and
then there should be a reason for that,
right? And I thought you're just here to he can sit and piss and moan about how all the choices he makes are wrong, and then you have that one scene when he's in bed and he's smoking, which he smokes a lot in this movie, and she's like, oh, tell me how. It's like, just come on, give her something, give Sharon Gless something else to do, give her more. I want more. I mean, anything that she does is going to help the main character. But what are you going to do? It's the early 80s, and men suck. So
I think this movie is good, and I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
Needs 10, 15 minutes more movie.
I just think we want
rare,
more. I think we want more because we like it so much, and I think that having more. That's why I think it's good. I think it's right for a remake because you can set it now. Story's relevant. You can work. You can build the characters a little bit more. I think you have to bring the Star Chamber in. They have to be involved in it in the beginning a little bit more in terms of in Hardin's life. Like, you know what I mean? He should learn about it early, and he should struggle with going on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to make him the hero, he can't be somebody who is going to be in trouble with the law at the end. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to, I guess, or he has to understand the consequences and accept them.
Right. Your consequences for him, there are none.
Right.
At the end.
Right.
You just have to assume.
And it's almost like, you know what, I mean, we're going to do this again. We're going to get into like what I should have done. But it's almost like, you want him with his family at home. I almost want something where he talks to his children and he discusses about being an honest person, being a good person, following the law, and like almost like the whole reason that like he breaks down at the end and he turns against the Star Chambers because he has broken the very thing he told his family. And then that's a way you can have your family influence your character, and that's a way you can bring emotion to him at home rather than just him going home to bitch and complain about shit.
And look at his kids like he's mad that they're playing asteroids.
Were they playing asteroids?
They're playing Pac-Man in one scene for sure.
Right.
But I think they were playing asteroids at the first. But either way, he just comes in, he looks at him like, oh, fucking video games, and then turns around. It's like, what?
Well, you're probably using the only TV in the house.
Probably, but it's like, explain that. They don't use that other than he's mad they're playing. Like, is that supposed to be a statement? Is that the director mad that his kids are playing video games all the time?
It's probably just a reflection of the times. It's early '80s. That's when everything started. Home video entertainment, home video games and stuff like that.
You're at least what you're proposing gives the kids something to do other than just doing that.
It makes the family. It makes the family environment have more of an impact on him in terms of not just the fact that he's supposed to say it. I have kids his age, but show it. Don't have, you know what I mean? Show the impact. Make him. And he never engages with his children, as you said. He never really truly engages with his wife. He just talks, and she's just offers him advice. And you know, there's you didn't even have to have any of this stuff at home.
He could have been single.
He could have been estranged. Somebody who, like, you know, maybe he sees his kids because they're having trouble.
Well, now you make the kids part of the story again.
Well, there you go.
And that's still more. But they're still more in the story than they are now.
But again, I mean, we're going down a road. We're going on a path. We're just basically like, this is how we redo this movie, and that's not what we want to do. No. This movie's good. I like this movie. This movie's something that was forgotten for the fact that it came out in the summer and it shouldn't have. It got pulled. The fact that it's not a science fiction movie, probably people thought it was, and the fact that the stupid box art cover has him with a gun in his hand and the flag in the back.
But is that the original box art?
No, it looks like it's an update.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
fine. The original poster is this like shadowy, like it's this black and white, almost black and white. Well, I think it is black and white poster where he's like it's behind him. He's standing at the table, long table, and there's faceless men on either side of him, and it's the Star Chamber,
yeah.
And he's just like sitting there, like his hands out, and he's presented his case. That's what it is. It's like the tagline, I think, is they are free to work. No, what is this? Like, they have committed every crime in the book, yet, what does it say? They have committed every crime in the book, yet the law cannot touch them. They are free to walk the streets. That's the tagline. What? Yeah, exactly. So what's this about now? Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I like the Court of Last Resort. That should have been the tagline.
Court of Last Resort.
Should have been the Star Chamber, the Court of Last Resort. But that's the original poster. Does that poster, the way I've described that poster, and I'm looking at it right now, that's a fall movie. That's not a summer movie.
Yeah. Right. The trailer doesn't do it any justice because you present it as an action film.
Right. And you know what's funny? What else is funny, but like this, I talked about it earlier. Like, this movie came out this movie's early 80s. So during the early 80s, they had like this big boon of like vigilante movies. But you're talking like Death Wishes, like all the Death Wishes. Those are pretty much, they're crime movies, but he's doing something. They're action movies.
Action films.
Right. The Exterminator movies, which I have never seen. I've seen trailers. They don't look great. But like, but there's movies that came out that were just about like vigilante justice, but that usually implies that one guy's going out and killing people or fighting crime in his own way.
Right.
This is not what the Star Chamber's doing. They're basically, it's more of like powerful men putting things in motion.
Yes.
And maybe that I can see why that's a turnoff for some other people too, because it's like, do I really want to see this movie where powerful guys are deciding who dies and who doesn't? So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it's a forgotten film. but it's good, and I think
Yes.
people should revisit it and try to catch it as much as possible. And Michael Douglas is a great actor, so
He's very good in this. Even if the end is only 5 minutes.
so I guess we both think that we should revisit the movie
Absolutely. And remake it.
and oh yeah, definitely remake it, reboot it, restart it.
I think this is the most, of the ones we've done so far, this is the most rebootable of all of the films.
It's old, yeah. I mean, it's like, what, we're talking 83, so we're talking, holy crap, that's 35 years old, 36, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely doable, and I got tell you right now, redo it, remake it, rewrite it a little. Cast Michael Douglas as the Hal Holbrook character.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. And then get yourself, because in this movie, I think he's like in his like late 30s, maybe early 40s. Like he's young.
He's a judge.
He's a young judge.
Yeah.
So
he's
get
definitely gotta be up there.
get somebody else, get somebody who can do it, maybe like a Ryan Gosling or something like that. And although, yeah, you could do that, and then go to work, get going.
All right.
All right, so I guess we both agree we like it. Why don't we wrap it up with a little plug action?
All right.
I'll go. I think I because you're so long, so I usually go first. I don't know. I mean, I got nothing. Go read my book. So, I got, like I said, I talked about before. I've got 2 books. Adam Parker and the Radioactive Scout, and Adam Parker and the High School Bully. These are both like the premise of these books are if Encyclopedia Brown, if anyone remembers, he was a kid detective back in the day, written by Donald Sobel, and he solved crimes in his little hometown. So I imagine like he grows up and he doesn't like being that person anymore. So he grows up. This is what the Adam Parker series is. The Adam Parker used to be a kid detective, grows up to become an adult who rejected that, but also an adult who is flawed, and he's trying to find his own way. And basically, these are his adventures now. So the first book dealt with Radioactive Scout dealt with him coming back home to his town of Hilldale, and then comes back home and kind of gets wrapped up in something. And the second book deals with the High School Bully book, deals with somebody from his past who he has wronged, who's coming back to ruin his life. This is a series of books that I've started, and I have a compendium to excuse me, I have a compendium to this book series that I'm writing now. That's kind of like I introduce a town in the second book, a town of Brookville, where like there's like supernatural weird happenings that happen in this town, and I'm writing like a series of short stories based in that town. Hopefully, that'll be the third book that I have coming out. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just writing, nose to the grindstone, right.
Cool.
And I have this podcast.
Yeah. So once again, I'm Mike Butler. And I have 2 other podcasts. I have Two Player Bros, a podcast by 2 brothers who play way too many video games, where you can join me and my brother Alex as we discuss all things video games on all systems. And I've also got Crackin' One Open with Mike and Elise, where we crack open a beer and we talk about brews, news, and pop culture reviews. And both of those are available now wherever podcasts can be found. That is Two Player Bros and Crackin' One Open.
Sweet. So thanks for listening. Share.
Like. Subscribe.
Review. Yeah. Drop a review. Suggest. We take suggestions. Please visit the website.
ForgottenCinemaPod@gmail.com is our email.
That's our email. What's the website?
ForgottenCinemaPodcast.com.
Right. Can you tell that we're really on top of this?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, please drop us a line if you got any suggestions for any movies you'd like us to do. We have a running list of about 50 or so that we have consistently keep adding to.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no shortage of movies that have been forgotten.
It'll never end.
Oh, God. But thanks for listening. I'm Mike Field.
I'm Mike Butler.
And this has been Forgotten Cinema.